Welcome back to Celebrate Story. Steve and I have merged our podcast together, Celebrate Gray and Celebrate Story, and we are The Gray. Thank you. And we are continually dreaming of different roads to take. We're dreaming about podcasts like we used to dream about children, like all the different podcasts we can birth. We have so many fun ideas and hard ideas, and we're just so grateful that you're still showing up and listening, because we could podcast all day long, but it's not a podcast unless you listen. So thank you for listening. And why are you looking at me like that? You looked like you didn't like what I said. I don't know.
I think it could still be a podcast whether anybody listens or not.
But I mean, we could just sit here and talk to ourselves, but we're actually intentionally trying to talk to some
Well, we
people.
Kind of are just sitting here talking to ourselves.
We are, but like if
with the intention of other people hearing it.
But it's not a podcast until someone tunes in and listens. It's just a recording that we kept to ourselves, which we have several of those. We have recorded podcasts we've never published.
We have.
Yeah, those aren't podcasts. Those were drafts of podcasts. Right?
I think maybe we can deconstruct that a little bit further down the road.
Yes, on an episode. Okay. Anyways, we're excited to be back. We're excited that you would be back and listen to us again, because this has been fun, just pure fun. Deconstruct that.
Okay.
Welcome
to Celebrate
Story.
Welcome to Celebrate Story.
With my mom.
My mom.
With my mom.
With my mom.
With my wife.
Julie Wagner.
Julie Wagner.
Julie Wagner.
Julie Wagner.
Peace prayer of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying to self that we are born to eternal life. I've got a stack of pages here, Steve. I've got so many poems and quotes that I've been collecting for literal months that I want to read.
So where are we going with it?
Where are we going? This is where we're going. Same structure, love, loss, and the church. You remember what it's inspired from, right?
It was a play we saw?
Yes. Last anniversary, our 21st anniversary, we saw a play, Love, Loss, and What I Wore. And it was a beautiful play, but it immediately inspired about a year ago this idea of like love and loss and church. And so I want to take some time, and this is the episode that has been written and rewritten, recorded and re-recorded, and so much life in between, including tearing apart a bathroom to the bottom, to the floorboards that I did.
And then I pulled the rest of the floorboards up and got down to the studs.
Yes. I was hoping for a sarcastic comment there, because like you actually did the bathroom. So we've remodeled a bathroom.
You started it though.
I did. I did.
You just decided you didn't want that floor there anymore, and you just started ripping it up.
It was a moment.
Yeah.
And I had to seize it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took the bathroom down to the literal kitchen.
Yeah, at times. People ended up in the kitchen, at least parts of them, yes.
And the bathroom went down to the dining room too.
It did.
It dripped down into Zach's foot on a Friday night. Steve was repairing the subfloor, and there was a loose crossboard, and Steve had injured his arm, had an injury in his arm and couldn't lift these heavy boards Actually, he needed another bicep surgery. And so Zach was helping, which was so nice, like giving up his Friday night, helping his dad. And he stepped on a loose crossboard. And I'm like pulling out a pizza from the oven because in the Wagner household, pizza night is Friday night. Yes. And I'm like, that sounded so loud. It sounds like it was in the kitchen. And I turn around because I'm like, surely it wasn't in the kitchen. It was in the kitchen.
And you saw Zach's foot on top of the kitchen cabinets.
And all the drywall had like come down on top of one of the pizzas. And I just literally picked up, probably to the horror of my mother, if she heard this would just have her just pass out. But I picked up all the large chunks of drywall, declared the pizza blessed.
It's clean.
And served it to my children. And we're all fine.
Yeah.
We're all fine. But yeah, we took I digressed. I know that's a surprise, but we have done so much life, including and not limited to the bathroom. But yes, we're going to talk about love, loss in the church. And so I thought it would be really fun for us to share stories of like just one, maybe two, because I know you're going to want to share 10.
Right.
I know how you are. That was sarcasm. Like maybe one or two memories of like a memory we have of church from when we grew up. And then we're going to share 1, 2, 3, 4 teen memories of church, like in like our family years of us like establishing our family. And then our hopes, because we've been through a major transition, and our hopes for what we can find in the future. So let's start.
Let's go.
Okay. So do you want to go first, or you want me to go first about memories?
You go first.
Me first. Okay. One of my earliest happy memories of church, though we went to church sporadically, we would go intensely when we did go. And so there was a church called New Covenant Church in Hampton Roads, Virginia. It was kind of a mix of Pentecostal, evangelical. It has some NAR leanings. For anybody interested in that, it is like, I see Steve shaking his head. Like, what's fascinating to me about this, like you could Google it if you're interested in it, but there's definitely an emphasis on the power of the individual. Like there's some name it and claim it in there. There's some like a preoccupation with evil. Worship was very boisterous. There'd be times of prophecy. These boisterous worship times fascinated me though. Like, I mean, there's a human quality to like singing together and like wanting to be a part of that. And I just remember my dad being exuberant in his worship, singing the song, this is the day that the Lord has made. There was tambourines, all kinds of music. It kind of had a hippie feel to it. But I remember this being a very exciting time. And I was small enough that he could hoist me on top of the wooden pew in front of me, and I could stand on the pew and I could see. And that moment is it's a feast to remember, because I remember feeling a part of it. Like he brought me up. I mean, my dad was 6'4", you met him before he died. Mm-hmm. Huge guy, and like hoisting me up, toes on the pew in the front. And that was my dad. He didn't care about what the rules were. He didn't care. He was one of these people that, I mean, he must have taken us to a dozen different churches, and he just firmly believed he belonged at them all. I didn't have that natural feeling of belonging, but these moments like this where his bigness and his exuberance and his sheer size gave this sense of like, I'm in it. And I remember a couple years later at that same church, like so wanting to be a part of this like worship stuff that was going on. It's like, that's where everybody's attention went. And it's like, I wanted to be a part of that. And I remember insisting I'd take my violin and play it for the pastor and show him I could be a part of the worship team. My gracious mother tried to encourage me to wait a little longer. And I am so strong-willed and was so determined. And so I marched into his office and played Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, because it was the only song I knew. And I wasn't even good at it with I said violin, but I meant viola. I wasn't even any good at it. And he was so gracious and so tender. Like, maybe if you just keep at it, you can learn some of these, songs better. And then maybe one day you could learn some worship songs and come back to us. And it's, I reflect on that now through grown up eyes. And I think back to just this sense of like, I wanted to be a part of things there. And the final piece of this memory, which I know I said 1 to 2 memories, but this is like one memory, 3 parts, just in case you're counting over there.
I was.
Okay. The final part is I remember I desperately wanted to work in the preschool room because my friend Rachel, my best friend Rachel, she ran that preschool room and it just looked so important to be in charge of all these preschoolers. And I remember being told that I could not do that because we did not come regularly. We did not come every week, but that I could like join her in the room. So I settled for joining her in this preschool room. But overall, I absolutely remember this desire to belong in these places because I sensed our sporadic attendance, coming late, leaving early, didn't have me in the way that I longed for. I wanted to belong and feel that sense of belonging far more than I could taste as a young girl. And those are some of my earliest memories of church. What were your earliest memories of church?
We didn't do name it, claim it, Pentecostal type stuff. It was either Catholic or Lutheran churches we went to when I was a kid, which are much more rigid in their worship and their preaching. And so it was kind of boring. I always remember church kind of being boring. When I was in high school, middle school or high school, I can't remember. I started going by myself. I would have my parents drop me off at a church where some of my friends went. And I would go to Sunday school and then go to the service. And I think that was Lutheran. But my memory from that is I enjoyed Sunday school. And then one of my friends was doing like a confirmation type thing. And he had to take notes for the sermon for whatever this class was that he was doing. So I remember a couple times we would just hang out in the church basement. And then when it came time for the sermon, which you could kind of hear the songs and the recitations and all that, you knew when it was coming, we would just go sit on the stairs and where you could hear the guy talk, and then he would take his notes, and then we'd go and do back to whatever we were doing. So kind of playing hooky from church is some of my earliest memories of church.
But yet getting the checklist in, getting what the church required of you.
Right. When it wasn't even me, I was just hanging out with friends.
Oh, yes. I meant him.
Yeah.
I meant him. Yeah. I got that it was your friend in confirmation. So. And then we can't skip over the memory of like when you asked me to marry you, yes, which was not a surprise. We'd been dating for sophomore, junior, senior year of college. We've been dating for 3 years at this point. Mm-hmm. It was not at all surprising that we were wanting to get married. But I remember being very surprised of sort of like the moment you'd asked me to marry you. And I'll never forget one of the questions. You remember, right?
Right. I do.
I was like,
are we going to raise our kids in the church?
Yes. That was something so important to me. And I remember, us having like just being on the same page from there, that it was so important to raise our kids in the church. And fast forward, we had Zach in Maryland, tried to find a church there and just started tipping our toes in, then moved to North Carolina, took on running a sign franchise that was way in over our heads. And you guys can check back to one of the earlier episodes where Steve tells some really, just a little bit more of his story on that. But we were truly, when I look back, it's very easy for me to say I was drowning in the responsibilities of that. I don't know how you would describe it.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. But we moved away from family because we were in Maryland and we had family there. I had moved away from Virginia before the Maryland move and had family there. And I don't think I calculated that move of like moving away from family and the support that we'd have. And so we tried some churches in Charlotte. I'll never forget walking out of one we tried after 6 months, and we had very different reasons for walking out. But I remember one of the big reasons that I had turned off was just hearing the pastor announce that depression is a choice. And it kind of had this like name it, claim it vibe. And I think you've talked in one of your podcasts. Have you?
About that church?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That they had a kids camp, and at the end of the kids camp, they were like wanted all the parents to be there. And I happened to be in the hallway right before the pastor like went in to talk to everybody. And it was like he was psyching himself up for like a sales presentation. It was like, and he used the words, "All right, this is why we did this." And I was like, "Ooh, that didn't feel right."
That was not a fit for us. And we left that church after 6 months and did not look back. And then we didn't really find another one. We were just literally drowning in the tasks of running a sign franchise and juggling a toddler. And as someone that I know that we ended up like making a home at a church, that truly was a wonderful, beautiful fit for our family for 15 years. And I'll never forget the guy that invited us. He was so funny. He was like, he picked up a stop sign in the lobby of our sign franchise and like leaned in through the opening, the glass window, and he held up the stop sign and he said, "Stop, I want to invite you to church." Do you remember that?
I don't remember that.
Because I remember it was like quite bold, but yet it fit his personality. Like he was just a little bit quirky and a little bit like, because that's definitely not the tone of the church. But he'd invited us to church, and so we went, and very quickly it became home.
Yeah. And we went there the weekend Zach turned 2.
Yes.
So
it was February 2005 or end of January 2005.
Right.
And I think back and it's like, wow, like so much time has passed. And I try to remember like my earliest memories of it. It felt like we joined a family there for me, for sure.
Yeah.
And it felt like such a comforting place because we had a couple of key connections we made pretty quickly that really gave me a sense of like connection and family. And I think that I also loved that when I started volunteering in the children's ministry, because I did not want our kids, which at the time, I know I wanted more kids at the time, but it's like I didn't want my kids to be bored or scared at church. And I loved that they made it so fun. Like they really made it fun. And I love that those early years, their focus was to teach kids that God loved them and he made them and he wanted to be their friend forever. And they taught them that through play. And that was huge to me. And I think a lot of the relationships I made there really affected my desire to homeschool. I would have never considered that, but I fell in love with education, spiritual education, and just enjoying children and seeing a different side. I think that's probably one of the most pivotal relationships I had, was like a nurturing, guiding, supportive relationship from an older person. And I was so hungry for that. I've only recently become aware how hungry I was for nurturance, guidance, and support. And so, when you're bringing me meals and vacuuming my stairs, that is like hitting something so deep. And so it was very easy for me to quickly give more and more of what I had, time and money, to this ministry and like make this such an important part of my life. And I thought I would be in children's ministry forever. Kind of rambling a little bit, but I'm just wanted to share a little bit about like when I think back, like, I mean, it was love at first sight. It felt like family and it felt like connection getting involved in there. And I'll forever value that. I feel like it helped shape the foundations of my role as a mother, and my embracing as my role as an educator to my children too, whether that's formally through homeschooling or just, I mean, every mother is a homeschooler. Every mother teaches their child, whether it's explicit or not. But it helped me embrace a lot of roles that I will forever value, that guidance of kind of showing me who I am. So what are your first memories of Met? Because I've already talked too long on that.
I remember it was comfortable. I remember you could kind of be anonymous, which I like, that you could just kind of slip in the back and you could become known when you wanted to become known. So that was comfortable to me. I think flashing forward, like as we look for new churches, it's very hard for us to be anonymous now because we're rolling in with, 5, 6, 7 kids or whatever, whoever's there that day. Because some of our kids work and do different things. But so I liked kind of the anonymity until you didn't want to be anonymous anymore. And I think it did hit at the right time because we didn't know what we were doing. Parenting wise, marriage wise, like it was all.
I still don't know what I'm doing.
That's true.
But I know what you mean. I just wanted to own that I also still don't.
So it at least gave us kind of some structure and path in the teachings that kind of helped us move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. And it's not only did I not know what I was doing as far as family and mothering, and we were both short on examples that we wanted to emulate. As like, what does that look like? What does that look like to juggle children? And as our family grew, because we were wide open to a large family, and as our family grew, we were hungry for day in and day out role models that could show us what that looked like. And that was invaluable to me to see what family could be like and what family could look like. And so that on the family piece was for sure something that was so invaluable. And also for me, it was like, I discovered a piece of who I was volunteering there. Like though I majored in communications in college and I loved doing speeches and I worked within education and business after college, like I didn't understand and hadn't spent a lot of time exploring like this love of storytelling and this love of like standing on a stage and interacting with an audience. And I am so, so grateful that they trusted me as a volunteer and then as a staff person to lead children and to storytell, because that started in a small preschool room, and there was definitely a huge boost of confidence and exploration in my creative strengths of like, I remember I was not good at recruiting volunteers when I was on staff there, not at all good at that. I was very good at making a relationship with volunteers, but I wasn't good at recruiting. And so there was a long stretch of time that I had no volunteers on Saturday nights, but would regularly get 20 to 30 kids at both services on the Saturday night services. And it's like, I was the person running that room with a couple of middle schoolers. And though that could have been an overwhelming experience, it was actually a very growing, stretching, and energizing experience, because it was like, wow, I can stretch these given strengths I already have and explore different creative ways of leading large groups of kids. And then that years down the road morphed into leading things which our church called like a family night, where I got to do like really fun character roles, like a cheer coach or a character from the Pixar movie Inside Out. I got to play Joy. And it's like, those things were so completely in my wheelhouse of like fully unfurling and unfolding and exploring like who I am. Because there is nothing I love more. Why I do this podcast is like, I love being able to just really explore my strengths of telling a story and telling what's going on. And so I absolutely loved that. I cherished it. I also hated it. I remember multiple times before walking on the family night stage thinking, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. And it's kind of the same feeling right before we publish a podcast. I'm like, this is ridiculous. We should never do that. Like this, never do this, like this natural fear right before you like release something creative into the world. So I have just such happy memories, and that being able to do that in a community and being affirmed for those gifts of storytelling, I cannot put words to the meaning that gave in my life. And to be taught by people, like there was one professor at UNC Charlotte that he worked on, his specialty was like exercise and movement, and to learn from him and to learn from other older moms at the church that also had passion for children's ministry and like all of that. Like there's no possible way I could summarize what that meant to me and how grateful. And that's why it is such a grief to let it go, even though it's the right thing for us. I think I always craved for more community than was accessible at that place. And I think now with juggling 8 kids, I deeply want to find a space where we can go kind of the Jerry Maguire thing. Less is more, deeper, not wider. And that's hard to do in a place that is always growing. And so, and of course, you could probably speak to some of the theological differences, which I'm kind of rambling here. So I need a life preserver. I need help.
Well, before we move further, I do want to say, like, before we went to MEC, I didn't have an appreciation for the Bible, or like I would pick it up and read it every once in a while, but I didn't really get it. So I did learn how to approach it and understand some of it, read it in context, and to use, I don't know, just kind of explore myself, have my own thoughts, kind of just get into it. I never did that before. I didn't understand. So it was a good kind of jumping off point to go through the teachings that we were getting there. So it's that's been
that is a huge,
very beneficial.
Can I add to that? Because it reminds me of another thing I'm grateful for, and I never regret pausing in grief and really thinking through what I'm grateful for. And that was a huge appeal to me. It had a teaching style. And I really, really value that. And that fueled my own love of learning, not just about spiritual topics, but everything that example, that role model, that cultural value of learning was huge.
Yeah.
And I really value that.
And we've built that into our house, I think. I mean, we're showing some fruits of that with our kids and them liking to read and learn new things. And so
it's so true. And that's modeled so beautifully by the lead pastor there. I mean, and everybody, the whole culture, it's a learning culture in it. And I really value that.
Yeah. All right.
So it's like,
so that's the love.
That's the love. That's the love. I feel like there might be more. But yeah, there was seasons of feeling a sense of belongingness there, and a sense of purpose and identity, and just all those, who am I? Where do I belong? What am I good at? What's my purpose? Like, there was seasons where those were all just humming. And yet life brings, life always isn't spring and summer. It's fall and winter, and that's the cycle. And as storms came, it wasn't as strong of a foundation of community as I had hoped. And I learned so much, because I definitely am. I have so much to confess in terms of my pride and my idolization of leaders. Like, my pride is like, I always thought, because there's always been a culture at that place of like every few years people leave. That just is what it is. The 15 years that we were there, that's what I saw. And I would always want to try to convince these people to stay. And I saw that I'm staying, they're leaving, and I'm better. And that is so prideful. That is so prideful and so hurtful, because we all need different things. And I see that now. But in my pride, I always thought, well, I'll use my connection, my love of connection, and my desire for community to like toil away in my little corner, my little place of like, I can build community, which is so, I used to really think community was something that you should own and take responsibility for building, rather than receiving. And now I'm like, it's kind of magical. Like, I don't quite understand. Like, I think we do have to build community, but I think we also have to receive it. There's no like one person building and one person receiving. Like, it's a flow. I look at it more as a flow now. It's like a giving and a receiving. It's showing up and being ready to receive. But for a number of years there, I really looked at it as like, I have to do my part to build it. And there's nothing like pain and just the natural ebb and flow of relationship, and just a storm of misunderstandings and hurts, and me trying to champion this, you've got to stay at MEC stuff. Because that was very prideful of me to think that the only way to be a Christian. And I think that's where another area of confession comes from me of like, I really did think that I found this person who has a PhD, and if I could memorize everything they taught me about theology, that I would certainly hold truth, that I could hold it in my hands. And my desire, my grasp on perfection and a desire to be good so that I then belonged was so tight. And it's like, no, I now think truth isn't something I hold or could ever grasp, because that's an awfully small truth. Truth is something that holds me. So that's where I've kind of landed in, that kind of sums up, I guess, my confession of like, but also trying to be like totally respectful of just, I really do believe that every single last one of us are doing the very best we can. And I want to speak of my story truthfully and kindly to not just others, but myself.
And I think both of us, and I know I did, so I guess I'll just speak for myself, but you've said it in the past, put leadership into a place of one, kind of on a pedestal, but two, almost in a parental space, which isn't fair for the person that we're doing it to, because they're not that. They never said they were. And I think that happens. I think that's a very common thing that happens, especially in churches where the leaders get pedestalized, and who can live up to somebody's expectations that they don't even know they're supposed to be living up to. So I know I did that.
Mm-hmm. Me too. And it's like we were both unaware really until our intensive counseling session, which we totally, I think, have agreed.
We'll talk about later.
Yes, we'll talk about that in another episode. Just kind of our ownership in that. And so
just to give a preview of that little discussion we're planning to have, we took a single day 7-hour counseling session together with a therapist. And it was quite impactful. So
yeah, it was, I can't wait to unpack that, because one, if I share it, it'll help me remember the treasures from it. And I am just forever addicted to being the helper. So if it also, I think most of all, it would help me to share it and to remember it and to commit to some of those light bulb moments, because it's going to take a lifetime to implement those light bulbs. But back to the loss of church, I think for us too, like as I think somewhere around in 2017, 2018, for me, my faith hit I was deconstructing long before I knew there's an actual word that describes deconstruction. Like I didn't even know that. I remember having a book, The Universal Christ, out at a park. We had taken the kids to the spray ground. And then this lady was like talking about it and talking about deconstruction. I was like, oh, that's not me. But then I realized, oh, wait, that is what I'm doing. And
what is deconstruction?
What is deconstruction?
For those that don't know.
What is deconstruction? Which I feel like we could do like a 30-minute podcast on what is deconstruction. Like
Let's do it in about 15 seconds.
15 seconds. Well, we could deconstruct anything. Since we have two very, very particular children with food, we deconstruct every dinner. We don't have like a casserole most of the time. We have bowls so that there's like 9 different veggie, meat, and starch sides, and you can like build it all together. That's a deconstructed meal. You could deconstruct a piece of literature. Like, what is the actual meaning of this?
What does it mean to deconstruct church?
Oh, wait, hold on. I'm getting there. We could deconstruct education. I feel like when I started in the home education journey, like we were broke. And so it's like, I'd go and see these really expensive curriculums and I'd be like, how can I deconstruct what they're doing? Like, what is the core of what they're doing? Well, I could do that with a library card and creativity, enthusiasm, passion, and curiosity. It's like, I just deconstructed this really expensive curriculum. Let me just take it down to the bare bolts. So you could deconstruct anything. I know you're going to say it again.
Church.
But what is deconstruction? I mean, I think that I feel not qualified to answer that, but I do feel qualified to answer why we deconstruct. Can I answer why we deconstruct? Because this answer has come with some sweat and tears, and some doubts. I kind of lost my confidence. I will totally own that. Like, here's a good and a bad part of my personality that I've learned through lots of therapy and relationships is that I am exceptionally open to what someone I love says to me. And I'll take it, even if it's meant in a public fashion. Like, I have such a hunger to like grow and learn and be open. It's like, I will take something and I'll take it straight into my heart, that is a good and a bad thing. And I think I'll spend the rest of my life learning to like sift and measure and like, is that really mine to own? Is that really mine to hold? I guess it was last summer now. It's been a while. Time flies. Just like I am on this exploration of like, what is church? Like, what is it? When I said to Steve, like, no, I want to raise our kids in the church. Like, what is the core? Like, what is the undeconstructible thing that I want in church? And it's not about me. It's not because I'm a consumer. Like, I really am looking for like, what is inarguably like the core of church? What are you smiling at?
So what's deconstruction?
What's deconstruction? Okay. Well, you tell me, what is deconstruction? And then I'll read my quote.
Go ahead. You have a quote. You're ready to go.
So, I mean, I gave the dinner example. Like, deconstruction is taking apart something into its parts and trying to decide, like, what holds, like, what's true, like, what's really, really true. I mean, think about, like, when I was growing up in high school, like, I was not allowed to date an African-American boy that I liked. And then, like, years later, my parents came back and apologized. But that at the time in the church we were in, that was truth. That was sin. And it's like, no, that got deconstructed. And we're like, no. And there's so many pieces of like what we believe without evaluation, because morality tends to bind us together and blind us. It's like, this is what we believe. Anyways, this is why I deconstruct, because I thought long and hard about this, because I will be harder on myself than any criticism that anyone can ever lodge on me. And this was I read it in The Folly of God by John Caputo. And I read this and it's like my soul was set free to like, no, this is why I deconstruct. I'm deconstructing to find or try. Will I ever find it? No. But it's an attempt to find the undeconstructible. What is the entire process of deconstruction ordered or commanded around? To what is deconstruction loyal? To what is it prepared to swear an oath? What authority does deconstruction recognize? What does it affirm? To what is deconstruction responsible? To what call does it respond? The answer is the undeconstructible. The answer is the undeconstructible. To any given deconstruction, there is a corresponding undeconstructible. To any given order in which a deconstruction is undertaken, like the deconstruction of religion, there's something undeconstructible in that order, which serves as that for the sake of which the deconstruction is undertaken, something that inspires it and demands it. There is, of course, no such thing as deconstruction capitalized and in the singular, just so many deconstructive analysis of literary works, political systems, institutional organizations, historical traditions, political constitutions, philosophical positions, each of which has something undeconstructible in mind, motivating it, inspiring it. Any given deconstruction analysis then is undertaking with unrelenting loyalty to the undeconstructible, which is also the very reason a construction is always deconstructible, since no construction ever gets that far. I have read those words and reread those words and read them to friends on Marco Polos and sent those words because that gave words and articulation to why I did this like journey very publicly of like, what is the church? Because I'm asking that. And I realize I'll never fully answer that. Not in education. And I still do that. I still am asking like, what's the most essential thing for this child's education? What is the most important? Because any year I construct, no matter how much I celebrate, oh, we've done a great academic year, it can still be deconstructed. And part of that is my perfectionism, and part of that is just like, a desire, a hunger for truth. So that was quite a long amount of things I had to say.
That was the 15-second version?
Yes. Was that like 15 minutes? Steve, I have so many things I love to share about this because.
So I would say.
Yeah, give me the 15-second version.
Deconstruction is, I think you go through life absorbing lots and lots of information. And at some point, you stop and say, okay, what is true? And then you kind of have to me, I like the analogy of a house. Like you built the house at some point through time, it may be worthwhile to kind of strip all the parts out down and find the foundation.
Like our bathroom.
Yes. You find the foundation and you make sure the foundation's firm. And then all the parts that you took away, you can start rebuilding the house with things that actually belong and then anything else that's new. So that's, to me, kind of deconstruction.
Yeah, that was definitely the 15-second version. And you can deconstruct anything. So it's like, I don't know, I take probably too personally this like, oh, it's trendy. Or, I heard once somebody say, oh, this, if you're feigning deconstruction, I'm like, oh, that'd be nice if it was just pretending.
Yeah, it'd be a whole lot easier.
It would.
Just to.
It is, because it's.
Not do this.
Yes, it's because
to be certain about.
It is. Yeah. It's terrifying to realize things you've built your life on, but it's also like freeing.
So, all of that were great points from you. And they were very thorough. And I think the smart thing to do would be to push this
to two episodes. I agree.
Because anyone listening has like groceries to buy and kids to watch and, whatever. So
I just really wanted to be concise. In my mind, I wanted this to be a 22-minute episode so I could move on to all the other dreams I have for the rest of the season.
Well, it's now a 44-minute episode. Yeah. So we'll just pause here.
Some labors are longer than others, Steve.
That's true.
This is a labor of love.
Right. Well, yeah.
It is. It's a labor of love and loss. So can I end with a blessing and then we'll do part 2 next week?
You can.
Okay. Kate Bowler, who is a Duke Divinity School professor. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've read quite a bit from her, listened to her podcast, went and saw her speak. And she was interviewing Tara Westover, the author of Educated, which is a book like several of the teens in our family and Steve and I have read. Unbelievable story. I mean, talk about somebody deconstructing their life, their home and what they were taught. I mean, wow, what a deconstruction journey Tara Westover went on, right? And at the end of Kate Bowler's episode, she does a blessing. And when she had Tara Westover on, and this blessing hit, I mean, y'all, the things I bring to the podcast or to dear friends and Voxers and Marco Polos are the stuff that it's like, this is inside me and I have to share this with you. Like I've literally recorded this on Marco Polos and Voxers. And I'm like, there's something in me that like has to share this or I'll explode. So I just want to share it with you all. It's a blessing for when your family disappoints you. Dear God, I am angry and hurt and so incredibly sad. The very people who are supposed to love me and know me best have let me down. I don't know if I will be able to let this go or find a way forward. I'm losing my sense of home. And the reality of it all fills me with a kind of fear, however big or however small, that this pain almost feels unforgivable. I know they're only human, really, I know, but their mistakes feel like they echo through me. They strike a painful chord that rings on, and I feel convinced all at once that I'm not loved, not known, not safe. I feel small all over again. So bless me, God, when tears prick at my eyes and I feel lost to myself. Bring me home. Remind me of the places you've brought me, the person I've become, when I can feel your light and peace. Forgive them for me when I can't, and send some grace for this moment to keep my heart from breaking or my temper from rising or any sentence from starting with they always. You remember me when I am a stranger to myself and an outsider at my own address. Make me a home.